Before we begin, a quick and important disclaimer. The marketing strategies, business frameworks, and case studies discussed in this video are intended strictly for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am not a licensed real estate broker, a legal advisor, or a financial planner. The real estate industry is heavily regulated at multiple levels of government, and your marketing practices must strictly comply with local, state, and federal laws, including fair housing regulations, truth in advertising laws, and the specific codes of ethics set forth by organizations like the National Association of Realtors and your local licensing boards. Any potential outcomes, lead generation metrics, or business growth projections discussed today are based entirely on historical trends and specific, localized case studies, not guarantees of future performance or promises of financial success. The algorithmic architectures of social media platforms change constantly, and marketing tactics that are highly effective today may become entirely obsolete tomorrow. You should never make structural changes to your real estate business model, alter your advertising budget, or launch new marketing campaigns without first consulting directly with your managing broker, legal counsel, or a certified marketing professional who understands the specific regulatory landscape of your local market. Always conduct your own rigorous due diligence before implementing any new lead generation or social media strategy. Right now, at this exact second, there is a fundamental crisis happening in the American real estate industry. According to historical trends and industry data, a staggering 87% of all new real estate agents will fail and leave the industry entirely within their first 5 years. They will surrender their licenses, abandon their entrepreneurial ambitions, and return to the corporate world. And while many point to fluctuating interest rates, shifting market inventories, or broader economic headwinds as the primary culprits, the truth is far more systemic and much closer to home. The vast majority of these agents are failing because they are completely invisible in the modern attention economy. They are pouring thousands of dollars and hundreds of cumulative hours into social media platforms, only to be met with absolute, deafening silence. Consider the daily routine of the average American realtor. They wake up, put on professional attire, and immediately begin executing the exact social media playbook they were taught by outdated industry gurus. They post heavily branded graphics declaring a property is just listed or just sold. They stand awkwardly in front of empty living rooms, pointing out obvious features like crown molding and stainless steel appliances. They utilize automated posting software to syndicate generic, pre-packaged articles about national housing market trends that have absolutely no bearing on their local neighborhoods. They participate in trending audio challenges on TikTok or Instagram Reels, pointing at floating blocks of text while dancing in their cars. And the result? Perhaps a half dozen likes, the majority of which originate from their own family members, their mortgage lender, and their managing broker. This disconnect between effort and outcome is not just frustrating, it is financially devastating. We are operating in an era where consumer attention is the single most valuable currency on the planet. The average American consumer spends hours every single day swiping through high-budget entertainment, deeply personal storytelling, and highly curated, hyper-specific educational content. When your generic graphic about a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom colonial with a recent price reduction suddenly appears in their feed, sandwiched between a viral comedy sketch and a gripping true crime documentary snippet, it creates a jarring, disruptive experience. Feels like a commercial interruption. You are essentially walking into a bustling, engaging cocktail party, aggressively handing out your business card to everyone mid-conversation, shouting about current mortgage rates, and then acting bewildered when nobody wants to speak with you. The modern American realtor is operating under the fundamentally flawed assumption that social media is a digital billboard, a one-way broadcasting street where you simply announce your existence, display your professional headshot, and demand consumer attention. But the underlying algorithmic architecture of platforms like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook has evolved dramatically. They are no longer chronological feeds designed to show updates from friends and local businesses. They are sophisticated recommendation engines powered by complex machine learning, designed with one singular, ruthless objective: to maximize user retention and keep the consumer on the platform for as long as possible. When you post a highly promotional generic market update that causes viewers to immediately lose interest and swipe away, you are sending a catastrophic negative signal to the algorithm. You are effectively telling the platform's machine learning model that your content drives its users away. Consequently, the platform will heavily restrict your reach, imposing a silent shadow penalty that ensures even your own existing followers never see your future posts. This algorithmic reality creates a paralyzing open loop for most agents. You spend heavily on sleek video editing. You purchase expensive ring lights and professional microphones. You subscribe to monthly template services that promise to automate your digital presence, yet your pipeline remains completely empty. You become trapped in an endless sea of sameness, your digital footprint indistinguishable from the thousands of other licensed agents operating in your zip code. You are left fighting over the same small pool of referrals, while the top 1% of digital-savvy agents in your market seem to effortlessly monopolize local attention and dominate market share. What exactly do those elite agents understand that the failing majority does not? There is a highly specific structural methodology they are employing to turn casual local scrollers into fiercely loyal clients. And missing this critical framework is the exact reason your current strategy is bleeding your marketing budget dry. By the end of this deep dive masterclass, you will have a comprehensive step-by-step understanding of exactly how to completely reconstruct your digital presence from the ground up. We are going to meticulously dismantle the outdated, ineffective strategies that are currently sabotaging your real estate business and replace them with a modern, consumer-centric framework based on the historical trends of highly successful digital media companies. I am going to guide you through the critical psychological transition from acting as a transactional salesperson to becoming the undisputed, authoritative digital mayor of your local market. We will explore detailed case studies of real estate professionals who entirely abandoned the traditional, just listed mentality and instead adopted a robust inbound media company mindset. You will learn the mechanics of localizing your content, crafting videos and narratives that highlight the hyper-specific, granular nuances of living in your exact county, school district, or neighborhood subdivisions. This localized digital authority is the single most powerful leverage point you possess against massive, well-funded national real estate search portals. Furthermore, we are going to dissect the anatomical structure of the perfect local video. I will break down the precise psychological triggers behind hooks that command attention without ever resorting to cheap clickbait. We will analyze how to retain viewer attention through high-value, community-driven storytelling, and how to seamlessly integrate soft, organic calls to action that pull potential buyers and sellers into your ecosystem without ever feeling like a hard, uncomfortable pitch. You will discover how to leverage search data and consumer behavior patterns to identify the exact questions, anxieties, and desires that prospects in your specific market are typing into search engines, allowing you to proactively position your content as the ultimate, definitive answer to their localized queries. This strategy has absolutely nothing to do with chasing hollow viral vanity metrics. Amassing an audience of 50,000 teenagers located thousands of miles away does absolutely nothing to help you secure a listing presentation in your hometown. We are going to focus purely and aggressively on deep localized conversion. We will cover the exact frameworks required to build a sustainable, omnipresent digital brand that makes you the only logical, unquestionable choice when a family in your area finally decides it is time to transition into a new home. You will learn how to strategically utilize educational content to cultivate deep parasocial relationships at scale. This means that by the time a prospective client actually picks up the phone or sends you an email, they already feel as though they know you, trust your expertise, and deeply respect your professional authority. The traditional friction, skepticism, and awkwardness of the initial sales pitch will be entirely removed from your business model. This transformation will require a fundamental shift in how you view your daily professional operations, turning your social media presence from a source of daily anxiety and wasted capital into the most predictable, reliable, and scalable client acquisition engine your real estate business has ever deployed. To understand exactly why this transformation is absolutely critical in 2026, we have to deeply analyze the fundamental shift in consumer psychology that has completely rewired the American real estate market. The days of simply buying a bench advertisement at the local bus stop and expecting your phone to ring are entirely over. We are currently living through the most aggressive attention economy in human history. The average consumer is exposed to thousands of marketing messages every single day. Their brains have evolved sophisticated defense mechanisms to filter out anything that looks, sounds, or feels like a traditional advertisement. When you upload a graphic of a house with the words just listed stamped across the top in a bright red font, you are triggering that exact defense mechanism. You are instantly categorized as a salesperson, and the viewer swipes past your content in a fraction of a second. This rapid swipe away sends a devastating signal to the social media algorithms. The platforms measure user retention above all else. When users abandon your video immediately, The algorithm categorizes your account as low value and artificially restricts your reach, ensuring that even the people who actually chose to follow you will never see your future content. Let us examine a practical example based on historical trends to illustrate this catastrophic cycle. Consider a composite case study of a traditional agent. Let us call him Michael Reynolds, operating in a highly competitive suburban market in Ohio. Michael is an exceptional agent when he is face-to-face with a client. He understands contract law, he negotiates fiercely, and he knows every street in his territory. But Michael approaches his digital presence like it is a digital classified section. On Monday, he posts a generic photo of a living room with a caption bragging about an accepted offer. On Wednesday, he shares a low-resolution graphic he downloaded from a corporate portal about national interest rate averages. On Friday, he uploads a poorly lit video of himself standing in an empty driveway, begging his audience for referrals. The potential outcomes of this strategy are universally dismal. Michael spends hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars on social media management software, yet his engagement remains effectively zero. He is shouting into an absolute void because he is treating a social platform as a one-way broadcasting network. He is trying to extract value from his audience before he has provided any value to them. Now, contrast Michael with a different approach, modeled after successful case studies of top-producing agents across the country. Let us look at a composite agent named Sarah Jenkins, operating out of the rapidly expanding market of Nashville, Tennessee in 2026. Sarah realized that competing on inventory alone is a losing battle because the massive national search portals already have all the inventory data. Instead, Sarah made a strategic pivot. She stopped acting like a real estate agent on social media and started acting like a local media company. Sarah does not post pictures of houses she is trying to sell. Instead, she posts hyper-localized, deeply researched educational content about what it actually feels like to live in specific Nashville neighborhoods. Imagine if you were to structure your entire content calendar around the actual questions relocating buyers are typing into search engines. Sarah creates a 10-minute, highly detailed video breaking down the exact differences between two competing school districts in her county. She interviews the local small business owners who run the neighborhood coffee shops. She films comprehensive driving tours of specific subdivisions, pointing out historical trends in property values, explaining the traffic patterns during the morning commute, and discussing the proximity to major employment hubs. When a family sitting in their living room in Chicago decides they are moving to Nashville, they do not search for a real estate agent. They search for information about the best neighborhoods in Nashville for young families. Because Sarah has proactively created high-quality, educational content answering those exact questions, she becomes the first local expert that family encounters. By providing massive, upfront value without ever asking for a commission or a referral, Sarah triggers the psychological principle of reciprocity. The potential outcomes of this media-first strategy are transformative. That family in Chicago watches 3 or 4 of Sarah's videos. They learn about the local property tax structures based on her educational breakdowns. They understand the zoning regulations because she explained them clearly and simply. Over the course of a few weeks, they develop a profound parasocial relationship with her. They feel as though they already know her, trust her expertise, and respect her authority. By the time they actually decide to fly down to Tennessee to look at properties, Sarah is the only logical choice to represent them. There is no hard sell required. There is no awkward initial consultation. The transaction is essentially won before she even picks up the phone, all because she positioned herself as an educational resource rather than a desperate salesperson. This is the fundamental difference between interruption marketing and inbound marketing. Interruption marketing is forcing your generic real estate flyer into the feed of someone who is trying to watch a cooking tutorial. Inbound marketing is creating the exact educational tutorial they are actively searching for when they are stressed about relocating their family across the country. To implement this in your own business, you must radically audit your current digital footprint. You must ruthlessly delete the automated national market updates that no one in your local farm area actually cares about. You must stop posting your professional accolades, your sales awards, and your closing table celebration photos. Those pieces of content only serve your ego. They do absolutely nothing to solve the problems of your potential clients. Your audience does not care that you are a top producer. They only care about whether or not you have the localized knowledge to prevent them from making a disastrous financial mistake when buying a home. Transitioning to this media company mindset requires discipline, consistency, and a deep understanding of your local community. You need to map out the micro-neighborhoods within your city. You need to gather historical data on municipal developments, future commercial zoning plans, and infrastructural changes coming to your area. You must become the undisputed digital mayor of your zip code, the ultimate authority on everything happening within a 10-mile radius of your office. When you shift your focus from selling houses to selling the community, the houses naturally sell themselves as a byproduct of the immense trust you have established at scale. However, simply recording a video about a local neighborhood and uploading it to the internet is only a fraction of the battle. You could have the most meticulously researched, highly educational, and deeply valuable community tour ever filmed. But if you do not understand the brutal, unforgiving mechanics of algorithmic retention, absolutely no one will ever see it. The platforms in 2026 have zero tolerance for slow pacing, confusing introductions, or low-energy presentations. The entire success or failure of your real estate media empire completely hinges on what you do in the very first 3 seconds after the viewer scrolls onto your face. If you make a single specific mistake during those crucial opening moments, the algorithm will bury your content permanently, and your competitors will effortlessly steal your local market share. We are about to break down the exact psychological architecture of the perfect video hook, and what you are doing right now to accidentally sabotage your own reach. The psychological architecture of a perfect hook begins before you even open your mouth or turn on your camera. In the year 2026, the average American consumer has developed an unparalleled level of digital intuition. Their brains have evolved a hypersensitive filtering mechanism, built through years of relentless exposure to short-form media. When they are scrolling through their feed at the end of a long workday, their thumb is moving at a rapid, almost involuntary pace. They are operating in a state of continuous partial attention, seeking a sudden spike of dopamine, a laugh, or a highly specific piece of valuable information. Your video appears on their screen for a fraction of a second before they make a subconscious, split-second decision to either stay or swipe away. This entire process happens in less than 3 seconds. The absolute worst, most destructive mistake you can make during this micro window is to lead with your ego. Imagine if you walked into a crowded movie theater, stopped the film, stood in front of the screen, and spent 5 minutes reading your own resume aloud to the audience. They would immediately demand a refund and leave. Yet, this is exactly what 95% of American real estate professionals do every single time they record a video. They begin with a slow, animated logo of their brokerage spinning on the screen. Then, they smile into the camera and deliver the classic, universally ignored realtor introduction. They state their name, they state their brokerage, they mention how long they have lived in the area, and they slowly meander toward the actual topic of the video. By the time they finally articulate the value proposition of their content, they have been talking for 12 seconds. In the modern attention economy, 12 seconds is an eternity. According to historical trends and platform analytics, if you have not captured the viewer's absolute focus by second 3, you have already lost 80% of your potential audience. Let us examine a highly specific case study to illustrate the potential outcomes of this critical error. Consider a traditional agent named Robert Anderson operating in the densely populated suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia. Robert is spending $3,000 a month on professional videography. He films beautifully lit, cinematic tours of his listings. But Robert begins every single video standing in a driveway, formally introducing himself and listing his recent sales awards. When we analyze his retention metrics, the data is brutal. The vast majority of his viewers swipe away before he even finishes his own name. The social media algorithm registers this immediate abandonment as a massive negative signal. The machine learning models that control distribution assume his content is irrelevant, boring, or spam. Consequently, the algorithm actively suppresses his video, refusing to show it to anyone else in the Atlanta area. Robert is completely invisible, not because his real estate knowledge is poor, but because his hook architecture is fundamentally flawed. To reverse this catastrophic trend, we must study the strategies of elite digital creators and adapt them to the local real estate market. We must deploy what is known as a pattern interrupt. A pattern interrupt is a visual, auditory, or psychological trigger that is so jarring, compelling, or hyper-relevant that it literally forces the scrolling thumb to freeze. Let us look at another case study, focusing on a top-producing agent named Emily Carter working in the highly competitive market of Seattle, Washington. Emily does not use logos. She does not introduce herself. She understands that her name and her brokerage are already visible on her profile page, right next to her video. She treats every single second of screen time as highly expensive digital real estate, and she refuses to waste it on pleasantries. Emily structures her hooks using a tripartite framework consisting of dynamic visual movement, immediate auditory clarity, and a deeply localized psychological trigger. Visually, she never starts a video sitting statically at her desk. She starts mid-action. She is walking briskly down a recognizable street in a specific Seattle neighborhood, or she is actively pointing at a controversial new commercial development. This immediate kinetic energy signals to the brain that something is happening right now, breaking the visual monotony of the feed. Auditorily, her voice is crisp, urgent, and completely devoid of the artificial, overly enthusiastic salesperson tone. But the true mastery lies in her psychological hook. Her very first words are meticulously engineered to target a specific demographic and agitate a specific localized friction point. Instead of saying her name, Emily starts her video by stating that if you are planning to buy a home in the Ballard neighborhood this year, a brand new zoning regulation is about to permanently alter your property taxes, and you need to understand it before you make an offer. Analyze the architecture of that statement. In less than 4 seconds, she has identified her exact target audience, which is potential buyers in the Ballard neighborhood. She has introduced a high-stakes friction point, which is changing zoning regulations and property taxes. And she has teased a crucial educational resolution, implying that watching the rest of the video will protect them from a financial mistake. Imagine if a young couple currently renting an apartment in downtown Seattle is scrolling through their feed while discussing their plans to buy their first home in Ballard. When Emily's video appears, it is not an advertisement to them. It is a highly relevant, localized warning. It directly addresses their current life situation and their deepest financial anxieties. They are instantly paralyzed by the relevance of the hook. They stop scrolling immediately. This is how you manufacture localized attention. You do not ask for it. You command it by demonstrating that you hold the specific answers to their unspoken questions. When Emily holds that viewer for the first crucial 10 seconds, the 2026 platform algorithms recognize the deep engagement. The machine learning models categorize her video as highly valuable for users interested in Seattle real estate, and the platform organically pushes her content to thousands of other local residents exhibiting similar search behaviors. This is the exact mechanism that builds massive localized market share without spending a single dollar on traditional advertising. You must audit your content immediately and ruthlessly eliminate any introductory fluff. Your hook must plunge the viewer directly into the nucleus of the narrative. Identify the exact problem your video solves, determine who specifically in your city needs that problem solved, and construct your opening sentence to merge those two elements as rapidly and provocatively as possible. If you are discussing a shift in local inventory, do not say that you want to talk about the market today. Say that the housing inventory in your specific county just shifted dramatically, and sellers who do not adjust their strategy by next week are going to lose thousands of dollars. You must operate with a sense of localized urgency that positions you as the ultimate insider, the definitive source of truth in your specific geographic territory. But securing that initial attention is incredibly fragile. You can have the most perfectly engineered, psychologically gripping hook in the industry, but if you drop the ball on the immediate transition, the viewer will still abandon you. Once you bypass their digital defense mechanisms and force them to stop scrolling, you have exactly 15 seconds to validate their decision to give you their time. There is a specific structural bridge you must build to keep them locked into the narrative. If you fail to build this bridge, they will feel manipulated, they will realize they fell for a hook without substance, and they will never trust your content again. The exact blueprint for this transition involves a psychological concept that completely redefines the viewer and creator dynamic, and it is the only way to turn a fleeting view into a lifelong client. That psychological concept is known in behavioral matrixing as immediate premise validation. When you successfully execute a pattern interrupt and force a local viewer to stop scrolling, you have essentially made a subconscious contract with their brain. You have signaled that the exact localized problem or anxiety you just introduced is about to be solved right now. If you break that contract in the immediate seconds following your hook, you create a massive spike in cognitive dissonance. The viewer feels tricked. Their trust in your digital persona evaporates instantly, and they will swipe away with a sense of lingering frustration. They will actively remember your face as a source of digital clickbait. In the year 2026, the American consumer is completely exhausted by bait-and-switch tactics. They demand absolute, immediate relevance. To understand the mechanics of immediate premise validation, we must look at how failing agents construct their transition phases versus how highly successful digital media operations construct theirs. Most real estate professionals, even when they manage to stumble upon a compelling hook, completely destroy their retention in the subsequent 15 seconds. They use the hook merely as a tool to capture attention so they can revert back to their traditional self-serving sales pitch. They will start with a brilliant opening about shifting property taxes, and the very next sentence out of their mouth will be a reminder that they are a platinum million-dollar club producer who is always accepting new referrals. The viewer immediately realizes that the educational hook was merely a Trojan horse for a commercial advertisement. The retention graph plummets, the algorithm takes note of the user abandonment, and the video is suppressed. Let us examine a highly detailed case study of this exact failure point. Imagine a real estate agent named Mark Thompson, operating in the rapidly expanding market of Phoenix, Arizona. Mark films a video targeting out-of-state buyers. He starts with a fantastic localized hook, stating that anyone moving from California to Maricopa County needs to understand the new 2026 water conservation zoning laws before buying a pool home. He captures the immediate attention of his target demographic. But instead of instantly explaining the zoning laws, Mark transitions by saying he has been serving the Phoenix area for 15 years, his brokerage just opened a new branch in Scottsdale, and he would love to be your realtor. By the time Mark finally gets back to the topic of water conservation, 45 seconds have passed. His audience retention has flatlined. The buyers from California swiped away at second 12 because Mark failed to validate his premise. He asked for their business before he proved his localized expertise. Now, we must contrast that failure with a case study of flawless immediate premise validation. Consider a highly successful digital-first agent named David Chun, operating in the intensely competitive landscape of Austin, Texas. David understands that his viewers' time is his most precious localized commodity. He films a video regarding the influx of tech workers into the East Austin neighborhoods. His hook is sharp and direct, stating that tech employees relocating to East Austin are severely miscalculating their annual escrow adjustments due to the recent municipal tax assessments. David captures the attention of his exact target demographic, but his brilliance lies in his immediate transition. Instead of introducing himself or his brokerage, David goes straight into the heavy educational value. His very next sentence strictly validates the premise of his hook. He immediately states that the city of Austin just reassessed property values in the 78702 zip code, and because Texas does not have a state income tax, the localized property tax burden is going to aggressively surprise buyers who are using outdated 2024 tax data on their mortgage calculators. In exactly 12 seconds, David has not only hooked the viewer, but he has completely validated their decision to stay and watch. He has proven that he is not wasting their time. He has demonstrated that he possesses highly specific, granular data that directly impacts their financial future. He is anchoring his authority through immediate educational delivery rather than self-promotion. Imagine if you went to a medical specialist because you were experiencing a highly specific pain, and the doctor walked into the examination room and spent 20 minutes reading you their medical school transcripts and bragging about their hospital awards before ever asking about your symptoms. You would lose all confidence in their ability to help you. The modern social media landscape operates on the exact same psychological wavelength. When you are a real estate agent building a media company, your educational content is the diagnostic tool. You build trust not by telling the audience how great you are, but by accurately diagnosing their localized real estate anxieties and providing the historical trends and data necessary to solve them. To implement this structural bridge in your own content creation framework, you must adopt a strict rule of zero fluff transitions. After you deliver your localized hook, your next sentence must begin answering the question or solving the problem you just introduced. You must use specific, data-driven language. Instead of saying the market is changing, you must say the average days on market in your specific county has increased by 14 days over the last quarter. You must replace vague platitudes with hard, localized reality. When you consistently deliver immediate premise validation, you condition your audience to trust your digital brand. You train the algorithmic architectures of platforms like YouTube and Instagram to view your account as a high-retention, high-value educational resource. The potential outcomes of this strategy are compounding. As your retention rates stabilize and grow, the platforms will organically distribute your localized videos to a wider and wider audience of high-intent buyers and sellers in your specific geographic farm. This is how you systematically dismantle the digital barrier between yourself and your potential clients. You stop acting as a disruptive advertiser, and you seamlessly become a heavily relied upon local advisor. You build an audience that does not just casually scroll past your face, but actively saves your videos, shares your content with their spouses, and takes detailed notes on your market analysis. You command absolute local authority because you are the only agent in your market respecting the consumer's time enough to actually educate them. However, successfully bridging the gap between your hook and your core content brings us to the next massive operational hurdle. You have their attention, and you have validated their decision to watch by instantly providing value. But real estate is inherently complex. You are dealing with amortization schedules, appraisal contingencies, municipal zoning codes, and complex legal frameworks. If you simply stand in front of a camera and dryly recite housing data and mortgage statistics for 3 minutes, you will inevitably trigger extreme viewer fatigue. Their brains will glaze over, the content will become overwhelmingly academic, and they will abandon the video out of sheer boredom. To maintain high retention throughout the entire duration of a deeply educational video, you must learn how to wrap complex, localized real estate data inside a highly specific narrative framework. There is a structural storytelling architecture that the top-performing media companies use to make even the most mundane financial topics incredibly gripping. And if you do not apply this exact architecture to your real estate videos, your massive educational value will be completely lost in a sea of viewer apathy. The exact architecture required to prevent viewer apathy is deeply rooted in a psychological phenomenon known as narrative transportation. Human beings are biologically hardwired to process information through storytelling. For thousands of years before the invention of the written word, complex survival data was passed down through generations not as raw statistics, but as gripping narratives. When you attempt to educate a modern consumer about complex real estate concepts like appraisal gaps, loan-to-value ratios, or municipal zoning ordinances using dry data dumps, you are fighting against human evolution. You are triggering cognitive overload. The viewer's brain interprets the raw data as a difficult task, the defense mechanisms engage, and they swipe away to find something easier to consume. Let us examine a highly detailed case study to illustrate the disastrous potential outcomes of ignoring narrative structure. Consider an agent named Thomas Jenkins operating in the suburban market of Orlando, Florida, in 2026. Thomas wants to educate his audience about a 2-1 interest rate buy-down, which is a highly effective financial strategy based on historical trends in his current local market. Thomas sets up his camera, stands in front of a whiteboard, and begins writing out the mathematical formulas. He talks about basis points, amortization schedules, and lender concessions. He is technically accurate and his data is flawless. However, his retention graph is a complete catastrophe. By the 20-second mark, 90% of his audience has vanished. They did not come to social media to attend a high school algebra class. Thomas failed because he presented the data as an academic lecture rather than a localized, high-stakes story. Now, we must contrast that failure with a case study of masterful narrative data integration. Consider a top-producing digital agent named Jessica Martinez, operating in the highly competitive market of Denver, Colorado. Jessica also wants to educate her audience about the exact same 2-1 interest rate buy-down strategy. But Jessica understands that data without narrative is just noise. She structures her video using the classic hero's journey framework, completely customized for the 2026 real estate consumer. Jessica begins her video by introducing a highly relatable protagonist. She says, imagine a couple named the Millers who just found their absolute dream home in the Highlands neighborhood. But when they ran the current 2026 mortgage numbers, their projected monthly payment was exactly $400 over their strict budget. Instantly, Jessica has humanized the data. She has created a protagonist that her target audience can project themselves onto. The viewer is no longer learning about a financial concept. They are emotionally invested in whether or not the Millers get the house. Next, Jessica introduces the antagonist. In real estate marketing, the antagonist is rarely a person. It is a market condition. Jessica explains that the antagonist stopping the Millers is the current national interest rate climate and the inflexibility of traditional 30-year fixed mortgages. She agitates the pain point, explaining the stress and heartbreak the Millers felt when they thought they had to walk away from the property. It is only at this precise moment, after the emotional stakes have been established, that Jessica introduces the complex data. She introduces the 2-1 buy-down not as a mathematical formula, but as the specialized tool that saves the day. She explains how she negotiated with the seller to cover the upfront cost of the buy-down, effectively lowering the Millers' interest rate by 2% in the first year and 1% in the second year. She then delivers the exact numbers, showing how that specific strategy reduced the monthly payment by $500, saving the deal and getting the Millers into their dream home while staying $100 under their monthly budget. Because the data was wrapped inside a narrative, the viewer's brain effortlessly absorbed the complex financial mechanics. They understood the amortization strategy because they saw it applied to a real, localized problem. The potential outcomes of this storytelling architecture are staggering. Viewers do not just watch Jessica's videos, they save them. They send them to their partners. When they eventually reach out to Jessica for representation, they do not ask her to explain the market. They ask her if she can perform the exact same strategic miracle for them that she performed for the Millers. She has completely bypassed the traditional friction of proving her competence because her narrative data structure has already demonstrated her elite problem-solving capabilities. To implement this framework in your own content, you must radically shift how you prepare your scripts. You can never again present a naked statistic. Every single piece of market data must be attached to a human consequence. If you want to talk about rising local inventory, do not show a bar chart. Tell the story of a specific seller in your county who overpriced their home last month, ignored the shifting inventory data, and ended up sitting on the market for 90 days before taking a massive price reduction. Use historical trends as the backbone of the story, but make the emotional journey of the buyer or seller the focal point. Imagine if you are explaining an appraisal contingency to a first-time home buyer. If you simply read the legal definition from your state contract, their eyes will glaze over instantly. But imagine if you tell the story of a buyer who waived their appraisal contingency in a bidding war, only to have the home underappraised by $30,000, forcing them to drain their entire emergency savings account just to close the deal. Suddenly, the appraisal contingency is not a boring legal term. It is a critical, high-stakes shield protecting their financial future. That is the power of narrative transportation. This methodology transforms you from a real estate reporter into a real estate dramatist, and in the 2026 attention economy, the dramatist wins every single time. You must learn to identify the invisible narratives hidden within your daily municipal data, your local multiple listing service updates, and your past client transactions. You extract the raw numbers, inject them into a relatable scenario, and deliver them as a masterclass in local market navigation. However, mastering the psychological hook, perfecting your immediate premise validation, and wrapping your complex data in gripping narratives will still not save your digital presence if your visual and auditory packaging is actively repelling your audience. You can have the greatest real estate script ever written, but if you are making fundamental subconscious errors in how you physically present that information to the camera, the modern consumer will instantly classify you as an amateur. There is a silent, unforgiving visual language that dictates local authority, and if your lighting, your audio environment, and your physical framing are sending the wrong signals, your brilliant narrative content will be completely ignored. We must completely deconstruct the physical environment of your video creation process, because what you do not know about visual psychology is currently destroying your credibility before you even speak your first word. Before we begin, a quick and important disclaimer. The marketing strategies, business frameworks, and case studies discussed in this video are intended strictly for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am not a licensed real estate broker, a legal advisor, or a financial planner. The real estate industry is heavily regulated at multiple levels of government, and your marketing practices must strictly comply with local, state, and federal laws, including fair housing regulations, truth in advertising laws, and the specific codes of ethics set forth by organizations like the National Association of Realtors and your local licensing boards. Any potential outcomes, lead generation metrics, or business growth projections discussed today are based entirely on historical trends and specific, localized case studies, not guarantees of future performance or promises of financial success. The algorithmic architectures of social media platforms change constantly, and marketing tactics that are highly effective today may become entirely obsolete tomorrow. You should never make structural changes to your real estate business model, alter your advertising budget, or launch new marketing campaigns without first consulting directly with your managing broker, legal counsel, or a certified marketing professional who understands the specific regulatory landscape of your local market. Always conduct your own rigorous due diligence before implementing any new lead generation or social media strategy. Visual psychology is the silent, subconscious language that dictates local authority, and in the year 2026, consumer expectations for digital media have skyrocketed. The average homebuyer is consuming hyper-curated, cinematic content on their mobile devices for hours every single day. Their brains have been fundamentally rewired to associate high-quality visual and auditory inputs with professionalism, competence, and trustworthiness. When a potential client scrolls onto your video, their neurological defense mechanisms instantly scan your physical environment before they even process the first syllable of your highly engineered hook. If your production environment signals low effort or technical incompetence, the viewer subconsciously projects that exact same incompetence onto your ability to negotiate a complex, high-stakes real estate contract. They assume that if you cannot manage the basic details of a 60-second video, you certainly cannot manage the intricate legal and financial details of their largest life investment. The single most destructive error agents make in their physical production environment actually has absolutely nothing to do with the camera lens. It has everything to do with the microphone. Audio quality is the most crucial component of visual psychology. You can have slightly grainy footage, but if your audio is crystal clear, viewers will forgive the visual imperfections. However, if you have stunning 4,000-pixel cinematic footage paired with echoing, wind-blown, or muffled audio, the retention graph will plummet immediately. Human beings possess an incredibly low tolerance for auditory friction. When the brain has to work hard to decipher what you are saying through a layer of acoustic reverberation or street traffic, it quickly becomes fatigued and simply commands the thumb to swipe away. Let us analyze a highly specific case study regarding auditory failure based on historical trends. Consider an agent named Richard Bowman operating in the luxury condo market of Miami, Florida, in 2026. Richard invests heavily in high-end mobile phone gimbals to shoot incredibly smooth, sweeping walking tours of his vacant multi-million-dollar listings. He relies exclusively on the built-in microphone of his smartphone, while standing 15 feet away from the lens in an empty room with floor-to-ceiling glass windows and marble floors. The acoustic environment is an absolute nightmare. The sound waves of his voice bounce violently off the hard surfaces, creating a massive metallic echo. When a prospective luxury buyer from New York watches Richard's video, the auditory experience is jarring and incredibly cheap. Despite the physical beauty of the property, the subconscious signal sent to the buyer is one of an amateur operation. Richard's failure to understand acoustic dynamics completely sabotages his luxury branding. To correct this, you must adopt a strict zero-tolerance policy for native phone audio. The solution is remarkably simple and historically proven to increase retention metrics. You must utilize a dedicated, external wireless lavalier microphone positioned exactly on your sternum, roughly 6 to 8 inches below your chin. This proximity completely isolates your vocal frequency, actively rejects background noise, and creates an intimate, podcast-like auditory experience. It signals to the viewer's brain that they are listening to an authoritative broadcast, rather than a haphazard amateur recording. Once your audio baseline is established, you must immediately address the structural mechanics of your lighting. The vast majority of American realtors completely destroy their visual credibility by utilizing overhead, recessed fluorescent lighting in their offices or relying on harsh, direct midday sunlight. Overhead lighting creates deep, unflattering shadows under the eyes and chin, often referred to in cinematography as raccoon eyes. This specific lighting pattern subconsciously signals exhaustion, stress, and unreliability to the human brain. It makes you look visually menacing or entirely drained of energy. Conversely, standing directly under the harsh sun creates blown-out highlights that destroy the dynamic range of your camera, making the video look cheap and abrasive. Consider the case study of a highly successful agent named Sarah Jenkins in Austin, Texas. Sarah completely bypasses these errors by mastering directional lighting. She understands that flat, even lighting across the face is the universal visual trigger for honesty, transparency, and warmth. She films her localized market updates facing a large, north-facing window during the morning hours, utilizing the soft, diffused natural light as her primary key light. If she films at night, she utilizes a primary softbox light positioned slightly above eye level and angled at 45 degrees, completely eliminating aggressive facial shadows. This strategic lighting architecture ensures her eyes are perfectly illuminated, which is critical because direct eye contact in video media is the primary engine of parasocial trust. Beyond lighting and audio, the actual physical framing of your camera lens dictates the power dynamic between you and the viewer. Mobile phone cameras are equipped with wide-angle lenses designed to capture large landscapes. When an agent holds their phone too close to their face, the focal length of the wide-angle lens actively distorts their facial features, making the center of the face appear aggressively large and creating a comical, highly unprofessional visual distortion. Furthermore, Agents frequently rest their phones on their desks, forcing the camera lens to look up at them. In visual psychology, shooting up at a subject makes them appear domineering, arrogant, and disconnected. Conversely, holding the camera high and looking down makes the subject appear weak, submissive, and lacking in authority. The precise step-by-step fix for framing requires extreme structural discipline. You must place your camera on a stable tripod and step back at least 3 feet to allow the lens compression to render your face naturally. The camera lens must be positioned exactly at your eye level, completely parallel to the ground. This specific geometric alignment creates a peer-to-peer psychological relationship. You are not talking down to them, nor are you looking up to them. You are looking them dead in the eye as an equal, a trusted advisor, and a local market expert. Finally, you must ruthlessly audit your physical background. Your background is your subconscious digital resume. Imagine if a potential buyer walked into a mortgage lender's office to discuss $1 million loan, and the lender's desk was covered in empty coffee cups, chaotic stacks of unorganized paper, and an unmade bed was visible in the background. The buyer would turn around and walk out instantly. Yet, real estate agents consistently film their highly educational content in front of wildly distracting, cluttered backgrounds. The viewer's eye is naturally drawn to chaos. If you have a messy environment, the viewer is no longer listening to your data regarding municipal zoning laws. They are visually analyzing the clutter on your bookshelf. You must curate a background that provides depth of field but remains clean, structured, and visually quiet, allowing your educational narrative to be the undisputed focal point of the video. By mastering these elements of visual psychology, you completely eliminate the subconscious friction that causes viewers to swipe away, ensuring that your perfectly engineered hooks and gripping narrative data are actually consumed. You have built a flawless visual and auditory stage. You have secured their attention, validated their time, and delivered monumental educational value. But as we move forward, you are about to encounter the final, most brutal choke point of the 2026 algorithmic architecture. The platforms do not just measure if people watch your content, they rigorously measure what actions those people take immediately after the video ends. If you simply allow the video to finish, or worse, if you use a traditional desperate sales pitch to ask for their business, you will entirely destroy the parasocial relationship you just spent minutes building. There is a highly specific, frictionless conversion architecture required to move a viewer from a passive watcher into an active, exclusive lead in your customer relationship management system without ever sounding like a salesperson, and failing to execute this transition is exactly why agents have millions of views but completely empty bank accounts. To successfully execute this transition, we must fundamentally redefine the psychological concept of the value exchange. The traditional real estate call to action is a massive, highly intimidating leap of faith for the consumer. You spend 3 minutes explaining a complex local market dynamic, and then you aggressively instruct the viewer to call your cell phone to buy or sell a house today. You are essentially asking someone for their social security number, their financial history, and a commitment to a 30-year mortgage after a 3-minute digital interaction. The friction is astronomically high. The modern consumer in 2026 fiercely protects their personal contact information. They know that the moment they hand over their phone number to a salesperson, they are going to be subjected to months of relentless follow-up calls, automated text messages, and high-pressure sales tactics. Therefore, their neurological defense mechanisms instantly activate, they ignore your request, and they swipe away. Let us examine a highly specific case study of this exact conversion failure. Consider an agent named Kevin Miller operating in the densely populated urban market of Chicago, Illinois. Kevin produces incredible, highly cinematic walking tours of the West Loop neighborhood. He provides massive educational value regarding historical trends in condo association fees and municipal parking regulations. He builds exceptional parasocial trust for 4 straight minutes. But at the very end of his video, Kevin points directly at the camera and says that if you are looking to buy or sell in the West Loop, call the number on the screen to schedule a consultation. Despite accumulating tens of thousands of localized views, Kevin's customer relationship management system remains completely empty. He successfully manufactured attention, but he failed to harvest it because he demanded a massive physical and financial commitment entirely too early in the relationship timeline. Now, we must contrast that failure with a case study of masterful frictionless conversion. Consider a top-producing digital agent named Amanda Brooks, operating in the rapidly expanding market of Raleigh, North Carolina. Amanda understands that you must never ask for a marriage on the first date. You must ask for a micro-commitment. Instead of asking for a phone call, Amanda offers a highly specific, hyper-localized digital asset that directly correlates to the educational topic of her video. This is known as a lead magnet, but in the 2026 attention economy, generic lead magnets are completely useless. If Amanda creates a video discussing the influx of technology companies moving into the Research Triangle Park area, and how that migration is impacting property values in specific subdivisions, she does not end the video by asking for a listing appointment. Instead, she utilizes a soft, organic transition. She looks at the camera and states that if you are navigating this specific corporate relocation process and want to see exactly which Raleigh subdivisions have the lowest property tax rates relative to their school district ratings, she has compiled all of that raw municipal data into a single downloadable spreadsheet. She casually mentions that viewers can grab this exact spreadsheet for free at the link in her profile. Analyze the psychological brilliance of that transition. Amanda is not asking the viewer to do anything that benefits her. She is simply offering to extend the immense value she has already provided. The friction is completely eliminated. The viewer does not feel like they are entering a sales pipeline. They feel like they are accessing an exclusive, highly valuable localized resource. When that viewer clicks the link in her profile, they are directed to a clean, highly optimized landing page. The only thing standing between them and the localized data they desperately want is a simple request for their email address. Because the perceived value of the localized spreadsheet drastically outweighs the perceived risk of handing over an email address, the viewer happily makes the exchange. This specific mechanism completely solves the most dangerous vulnerability in the modern real estate business model, which is building your entire local empire on rented digital land. When you rely exclusively on platforms like Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube to communicate with your audience, you are entirely at the mercy of their algorithmic architectures. A single algorithm update, a platform policy change, or a shadow ban can instantly wipe out your entire local reach. You do not own your followers. But when you successfully transition a viewer off the platform and into your own private email database by offering a hyper-localized digital asset, you have permanently captured that attention. You own that data. You have complete, unrestricted access to their inbox, completely bypassing the algorithmic gatekeepers. However, capturing the email address is only the first phase of the off-platform conversion architecture. The potential outcomes of this strategy are only realized if you understand exactly how to nurture that captured attention over time. Most agents who actually manage to build an email list immediately ruin it by sending out automated, generic corporate newsletters filled with recipes, daylight-saving time reminders, and aggressive requests for referrals. If a consumer gives you their email address in exchange for a deep-dive analytical spreadsheet on Raleigh property taxes, and the very next week you send them a recipe for a pumpkin spice latte and a reminder to set their clocks back, you have completely shattered your local authority. You have broken the psychological contract. They will immediately unsubscribe, and you will have lost the lead forever. The follow-up architecture must be as deeply localized and highly valuable as the initial video that captured their attention. When a potential buyer downloads Amanda's spreadsheet, it triggers a highly engineered, automated email sequence within her customer relationship management system. The very first email delivers the promised asset immediately, without any additional friction or hidden sales pitches. But the magic happens in the subsequent communications. 3 days later, the system automatically sends a second email. This email does not ask if they are ready to buy a house. Instead, it offers a deeply engaging case study based on historical trends of a family who recently utilized that exact spreadsheet to save $10,000 on a home purchase in the exact neighborhood the viewer is researching. This sequence continues, systematically delivering massive, localized value directly to the consumer's inbox. You are providing off-market property insights, granular breakdowns of local commercial developments, and exclusive interviews with local mortgage lenders discussing specific municipal loan programs. You are slowly, methodically building an impenetrable fortress of trust and authority. You are compounding your parasocial relationship. You are staying at the absolute top of their mind without ever once triggering their defense mechanisms by acting like a traditional salesperson. By the time this consumer actually decides they are financially ready to initiate a real estate transaction, they will not go to a massive national search portal to find a random agent. They will not ask their friends for a referral. They will go directly into their own email inbox, find your last highly valuable local market update, and they will reply directly to you. You have successfully inverted the entire sales process. You are no longer chasing cold, skeptical leads. You are receiving warm, highly educated inbound inquiries from clients who already view you as the undisputed local market authority. But there is a massive, deeply hidden trap waiting for you at this exact moment. You have successfully captured their attention with a perfect hook. You validated their time with deep narrative data. You seamlessly transitioned them off the platform and into your database. And now they have finally replied to your email and requested an initial consultation. The immediate actions you take during this very first face-to-face or virtual interaction will either permanently cement your status as their exclusive local advisor, or it will instantly shatter the illusion, expose you as just another desperate real estate agent, and cause the entire deal to collapse before it even begins. The exact scripting and psychological posturing required for this initial meeting runs completely counter to everything the traditional real estate industry has ever taught you. The traditional real estate brokerage model demands that the moment you get a prospective client on a Zoom call, or sitting across from you at a local coffee shop, you must immediately transition into aggressive pitch mode. You are historically taught to show up with a glossy, heavy stock presentation folder emblazoned with your company logo. You are instructed to slide a pre-printed comparative market analysis across the table, walk them through a meticulously rehearsed slideshow detailing your past sales volume, and attempt to corner them into signing an exclusive buyer agency agreement or a listing contract within the first 30 minutes. This antiquated strategy assumes that the consumer still needs to be convinced of your basic professional competence. But you must understand that in 2026, because of the massive educational media ecosystem you have just built, that assumption is completely obsolete. When a viewer has spent the last 3 weeks watching your hyper-localized YouTube videos, consuming your analytical neighborhood breakdowns, and reading your deeply researched email newsletters, the heavy lifting of proving your competence has already been accomplished. They already view you as the localized expert. If you suddenly revert to the aggressive traditional sales pitch the moment you meet them in person, you create a massive wave of cognitive dissonance. The consumer feels a jarring disconnect between the highly educational, patient digital advisor they learn to trust online and the desperate, commission-focused salesperson sitting in front of them right now. This bait and switch instantly triggers their neurological defense mechanisms. They will physically lean back, cross their arms, withhold vital financial information, and ultimately tell you they need to think about it before signing anything, which is the universal death knell of a real estate transaction. Let us examine a highly specific case study regarding this exact point of failure, based on historical trends we are seeing across major metropolitan markets. Consider an agent named Michael Sterling operating in the highly competitive luxury market of Scottsdale, Arizona, in 2026. Michael executed the digital media strategy perfectly. He created a stunning video breaking down the new 2026 zoning laws affecting short-term rentals in specific Maricopa County subdivisions. An out-of-state investor from Chicago watched the video, downloaded Michael's spreadsheet on projected rental yields, and booked a consultation call. Michael had already won the digital battle, but the moment the virtual meeting began, Michael panicked. He abandoned his role as an educational advisor and launched into a 20-minute monologue about his brokerage's global reach, his personal sales awards from 2025, and his proprietary marketing plan. The investor, who simply wanted to discuss the data from the video, felt immediately alienated. The investor politely ended the call and took his $3 million budget to a different agent who was willing to actually listen. Michael's failure was not a lack of leads. It was a fundamental misunderstanding of psychological posturing during the conversion phase. To eliminate this friction and secure the client with zero resistance, you must adopt the psychological posturing of a medical diagnostician. Imagine if you walked into a highly specialized orthopedic surgeon's office with a severe knee injury. If that surgeon immediately shoved a brochure for a new scalpel in your face and demanded you sign a surgery contract before asking you where it hurts, you would report them to the medical board and leave immediately. A master surgeon sits down, asks highly calibrated questions, listens intently to your symptoms, and only then prescribes a highly specific, localized solution. Your initial consultation with an inbound digital lead must follow this exact same diagnostic architecture. Now we must contrast Michael's failure with a case study of masterful conversion posturing. Consider a top-producing agent named Elena Rodriguez, operating in the dense urban core of Seattle, Washington. When a prospective buyer books an initial meeting with Elena after consuming her digital content, she arrives with absolutely zero marketing materials. She does not bring a single flyer, branded pen, or historical sales chart. She completely removes the pressure of the sale from the room. Elena begins the meeting by controlling the frame. She explicitly states that her only goal for the next 45 minutes is to conduct a deep dive discovery session to see if buying a home in Seattle even makes logical financial sense for them in the current 2026 economic climate. By acknowledging the possibility that buying might actually be the wrong decision, Elena instantly strips away the salesperson stereotype. She aligns herself alongside the consumer as a protective fiduciary, rather than positioning herself across from them as a transactional adversary. She then deploys a specific sequence of diagnostic questioning. She does not ask basic, low-level questions like how many bedrooms they want. She asks high-leverage psychological questions. She asks them to describe exactly what their daily routine looks like on a Tuesday morning, and what specific localized frictions are currently making their present living situation unbearable. Because she has already established immense parasocial trust through her videos, the prospective clients open up completely. They share their financial anxieties, their fears about specific school district rezonings, and their long-term wealth generation goals. Elena takes meticulous notes, strictly listening and diagnosing the root cause of their real estate desires. It is only after she has completely mapped their psychological and financial landscape that she speaks. And when she does not pitch herself. She prescribes a solution using the exact same localized data and narrative frameworks she utilized in her video content. She connects their specific anxieties directly to the municipal data she studies every single morning. The potential outcomes of this diagnostic approach are revolutionary for your business. When Elena finally suggests that they partner together to navigate the Seattle market, there is absolutely zero hesitation from the buyer. There is no negotiation on commission. There is no request to interview other agents. The prospect views Elena not as a commodity to be bargained with, but as an absolute necessity for their financial survival in the local market. The transition from digital viewer to exclusive client happens completely frictionlessly, because the entire process was anchored in continuous, localized education, rather than aggressive persuasion. You must completely unlearn the antiquated closing techniques taught in traditional real estate seminars. You are no longer closing deals. You are opening localized advisory relationships. When you master this face-to-face diagnostic framework, your conversion rate on inbound digital leads will skyrocket, and your customer relationship management system will finally begin generating actual revenue, rather than just hosting empty vanity metrics. However, successfully acquiring the client and getting the exclusive contract signed is merely the first phase of the modern real estate lifecycle. Most agents believe that once the contract is signed, the marketing stops and the transaction coordination begins. This is a catastrophic waste of potential leverage. Every single transaction you conduct contains exactly the right raw materials to fuel your next 5 localized video topics. But if you do not know how to ethically and strategically extract that data while the transaction is happening, you will be forced to constantly reinvent the wheel every time you turn on your camera. There is a deeply specific, systemic method for turning your active client pipeline into an endless, self-sustaining content generation engine, without ever violating client confidentiality or slowing down the closing process. And missing this operational step is exactly why so many creators eventually burn out and abandon social media entirely. To understand why this burnout occurs, you must analyze the daily schedule of the average American agent who is desperately trying to maintain a consistent digital presence. They wake up on a Tuesday morning, sit at their desk, stare at a completely blank screen, and attempt to artificially invent a compelling topic about the housing market. They try to manufacture creativity on demand. They look at national news headlines, they try to find trending audio tracks, and they desperately search for anything to talk about that will capture local attention. This is a catastrophic waste of cognitive energy and operational time. You are operating under the deeply flawed assumption that to be a successful media company, you must constantly invent new, entertaining concepts. The historical trends of elite digital businesses prove the exact opposite. You do not need to create. You simply need to document the high-stakes reality of your daily professional operations. Every single time you open a new escrow, negotiate a repair addendum, or navigate an appraisal shortfall, you are actively participating in a localized masterclass of real estate problem-solving. Your active transaction pipeline is the most potent, highly relevant content generation engine in existence, but you are currently letting all of that massive educational value evaporate the moment the closing documents are signed. The framework required to harvest this value is known as the Documented Transaction Protocol. This protocol systematically extracts the narrative drama and the granular educational data from your active deals and translates them into hyper-localized video scripts, all while maintaining absolute legal confidentiality and protecting your client's privacy. Let us examine a case study of a complete operational failure to illustrate the potential outcomes of ignoring this framework. Consider an agent named David Foster operating in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio in 2026. David is managing 3 active transactions, all of which are incredibly complex. One involves a severe foundation issue discovered during the inspection. Another involves a brutal bidding war where his buyers lost despite offering $20,000 over asking price. And the third involves a seller trying to navigate a post-closing occupancy agreement. Instead of utilizing these real-world scenarios, David spends 3 hours on a Friday afternoon filming a generic, highly scripted video explaining the basic definition of an earnest money deposit. His video is incredibly boring because it lacks a narrative backbone. Furthermore, David is exhausted. He feels like he is working 2 completely separate full-time jobs, one as a real estate agent and one as a digital creator. Eventually, the friction becomes too high, the digital return on investment plummets, and David simply stops producing videos. Now, we must contrast David's failure with a case study of masterful content extraction. Consider a highly successful digital agent named Marcus Jenkins operating in the competitive urban landscape of Dallas, Texas. Marcus does not brainstorm topics. He simply reviews his active client pipeline and identifies the most severe friction point he encountered that specific week. Let us imagine if Marcus is currently representing a young couple buying a historic home in the Bishop Arts District. During the inspection phase, the structural engineer discovers that the 1920s pier and beam foundation has been severely compromised by the extreme 2026 climate shifts and local soil expansion. This is a highly stressful, high-stakes moment for the transaction. Marcus spends an hour on the phone with the structural engineer, learning exactly how the municipal codes require the foundation to be retrofitted. He then spends another hour explaining these complex engineering concepts to his terrified buyers, ultimately negotiating a massive seller concession to cover the $30,000 repair cost. Instead of letting that massive educational effort disappear, Marcus immediately turns it into a highly optimized video script. The critical step here is the anonymization process. Marcus strictly strips away the exact street address, the client's names, and the specific purchase price to maintain complete fiduciary confidentiality. He distills the transaction down to its core localized lesson. He sets up his camera, ensures his visual psychology and audio are flawless, and deploys his hook. He states that if you are looking to purchase a historic property in the Bishop Arts District this year, the shifting soil conditions are destroying historic foundations, and you need to understand the 2026 retrofitting codes before you waive your inspection contingency. Marcus then uses the exact same verbal explanation he just gave to his buyers to educate his local audience. He explains the mechanics of pier and beam foundations, the signs of soil expansion, and the exact negotiation strategy he utilized to secure a seller concession for a massive repair. He is not inventing content. He is simply broadcasting the localized expertise he is already deploying in the field. The potential outcomes of this documented transaction protocol are deeply compounding. When a prospective buyer who is actively searching for homes in that specific Dallas neighborhood watches the video, they are blown away by the granular, localized engineering knowledge Marcus possesses. They realize that a generic agent would likely miss that catastrophic foundation issue, costing them tens of thousands of dollars. Marcus has definitively proven his local authority without ever bragging about his sales volume. This methodology can be applied to every single phase of the real estate transaction. If you experience an appraisal gap on a listing because the local comparables have not caught up to the current market velocity, you document the friction. You anonymize the data, and you create a video explaining exactly how out-of-town buyers are causing appraisal shortfalls in your specific zip code, and the exact contractual language you use to protect your sellers from a collapsing deal. If you spend 45 minutes analyzing a complex homeowners association document for a luxury condominium building to ensure your client is allowed to operate a home-based business, you turn that localized research into a deep dive video on the hidden legal traps within municipal condo associations. By merging your daily operational duties with your media creation pipeline, the content burnout completely vanishes. You are no longer working 2 separate jobs. Your real estate business fuels your media company, and your media company automatically generates new localized leads for your real estate business. You become a self-sustaining, highly efficient digital ecosystem. You speak with absolute conviction and raw authenticity because you are not reciting theory from a textbook. You are recounting the exact battles you fought in the local market that very same morning. The modern consumer instantly detects this authenticity. They can hear the difference between an agent reciting a teleprompter script and a localized expert passionately explaining a real-world market anomaly. You now possess the entire psychological and structural framework to dominate your local market. You understand the brutal mechanics of the attention economy, the architecture of the perfect localized hook, the necessity of immediate premise validation, the power of narrative data transportation, the silent language of visual psychology, the frictionless off-platform conversion strategy, the diagnostic consultation model, and the perpetual content extraction engine. But if you take all of this knowledge, record a masterpiece of a localized video, and simply upload it to the platforms without understanding the hidden, highly technical metadata matrix that controls organic distribution, you will remain completely invisible. The algorithms do not just magically know who to show your video to. You have to explicitly program the machine learning models using a very specific set of back-end signals. And if you mismanage this final distribution phase, your entire digital empire will collapse before it ever reaches the local consumer. To understand why this burnout occurs, you must analyze the daily schedule of the average American agent who is desperately trying to maintain a consistent digital presence. They wake up on a Tuesday morning, sit at their desk, stare at a completely blank screen, and attempt to artificially invent a compelling topic about the housing market. They try to manufacture creativity on demand. They look at national news headlines, they try to find trending audio tracks, and they desperately search for anything to talk about that will capture local attention. This is a catastrophic waste of cognitive energy and operational time. You are operating under the deeply flawed assumption that to be a successful media company, you must constantly invent new, entertaining concepts. The historical trends of elite digital businesses prove the exact opposite. You do not need to create. You simply need to document the high-stakes reality of your daily professional operations. Every single time you open a new escrow, negotiate a repair addendum, or navigate an appraisal shortfall, you are actively participating in a localized masterclass of real estate problem-solving. Your active transaction pipeline is the most potent, highly relevant content generation engine in existence, but you are currently letting all of that massive educational value evaporate the moment the closing documents are signed. The framework required to harvest this value is known as the Documented Transaction Protocol. This protocol systematically extracts the narrative drama and the granular educational data from your active deals and translates them into hyper-localized video scripts, all while maintaining absolute legal confidentiality and protecting your client's privacy. Let us examine a case study of a complete operational failure to illustrate the potential outcomes of ignoring this framework. Consider an agent named David Foster operating in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio in 2026. David is managing 3 active transactions, all of which are incredibly complex. One involves a severe foundation issue discovered during the inspection. Another involves a brutal bidding war where his buyers lost despite offering $20,000 over asking price. And the third involves a seller trying to navigate a post-closing occupancy agreement. Instead of utilizing these real-world scenarios, David spends 3 hours on a Friday afternoon filming a generic, highly scripted video explaining the basic definition of an earnest money deposit. His video is incredibly boring because it lacks a narrative backbone. Furthermore, David is exhausted. He feels like he is working 2 completely separate full-time jobs, one as a real estate agent and one as a digital creator. Eventually, the friction becomes too high, the digital return on investment plummets, and David simply stops producing videos. Now, we must contrast David's failure with a case study of masterful content extraction. Consider a highly successful digital agent named Marcus Jenkins operating in the competitive urban landscape of Dallas, Texas. Marcus does not brainstorm topics. He simply reviews his active client pipeline and identifies the most severe friction point he encountered that specific week. Let us imagine if Marcus is currently representing a young couple buying a historic home in the Bishop Arts District. During the inspection phase, the structural engineer discovers that the 1920s pier and beam foundation has been severely compromised by the extreme 2026 climate shifts and local soil expansion. This is a highly stressful, high-stakes moment for the transaction. Marcus spends an hour on the phone with the structural engineer, learning exactly how the municipal codes require the foundation to be retrofitted. He then spends another hour explaining these complex engineering concepts to his terrified buyers, ultimately negotiating a massive seller concession to cover the $30,000 repair cost. Instead of letting that massive educational effort disappear, Marcus immediately turns it into a highly optimized video script. The critical step here is the anonymization process. Marcus strictly strips away the exact street address, the client's names, and the specific purchase price to maintain complete fiduciary confidentiality. He distills the transaction down to its core localized lesson. He sets up his camera, ensures his visual psychology and audio are flawless, and deploys his hook. He states that if you are looking to purchase a historic property in the Bishop Arts District this year, the shifting soil conditions are destroying historic foundations, and you need to understand the 2026 retrofitting codes before you waive your inspection contingency. Marcus then uses the exact same verbal explanation he just gave to his buyers to educate his local audience. He explains the mechanics of pier and beam foundations, the signs of soil expansion, and the exact negotiation strategy he utilized to secure a seller concession for a massive repair. He is not inventing content. He is simply broadcasting the localized expertise he is already deploying in the field. The potential outcomes of this documented transaction protocol are deeply compounding. When a prospective buyer who is actively searching for homes in that specific Dallas neighborhood watches the video, they are blown away by the granular, localized engineering knowledge Marcus possesses. They realize that a generic agent would likely miss that catastrophic foundation issue, costing them tens of thousands of dollars. Marcus has definitively proven his local authority without ever bragging about his sales volume. This methodology can be applied to every single phase of the real estate transaction. If you experience an appraisal gap on a listing because the local comparables have not caught up to the current market velocity, you document the friction. You anonymize the data, and you create a video explaining exactly how out-of-town buyers are causing appraisal shortfalls in your specific zip code, and the exact contractual language you use to protect your sellers from a collapsing deal. If you spend 45 minutes analyzing a complex homeowners association document for a luxury condominium building to ensure your client is allowed to operate a home-based business, you turn that localized research into a deep dive video on the hidden legal traps within municipal condo associations. By merging your daily operational duties with your media creation pipeline, the content burnout completely vanishes. You are no longer working two separate jobs. Your real estate business fuels your media company, and your media company automatically generates new localized leads for your real estate business. You become a self-sustaining, highly efficient digital ecosystem. You speak with absolute conviction and raw authenticity because you are not reciting theory from a textbook. You are recounting the exact battles you fought in the local market that very same morning. The modern consumer instantly detects this authenticity. They can hear the difference between an agent reciting a teleprompter script and a localized expert passionately explaining a real-world market anomaly. You now possess the entire psychological and structural framework to dominate your local market. You understand the brutal mechanics of the attention economy, the architecture of the perfect localized hook, the necessity of immediate premise validation, the power of narrative data transportation, the silent language of visual psychology, the frictionless off-platform conversion strategy, the diagnostic consultation model, and the perpetual content extraction engine. But if you take all of this knowledge, record a masterpiece of a localized video, and simply upload it to the platforms without understanding the hidden, highly technical metadata matrix that controls organic distribution, you will remain completely invisible. The algorithms do not just magically know who to show your video to. You have to explicitly program the machine learning models using a very specific set of back-end signals. And if you mismanage this final distribution phase, your entire digital empire will collapse before it ever reaches the local consumer.